Learn how to tap into that play again. And because guess what? Someone who's having fun is 1,000 times harder to beat than someone who's like, I'm gonna get it. Right? It's a different energy. And then like figure out what your why is. And you need that like glued to you or on you or available or look at it. Like even on my wall, when I leave my bedroom, I have a little number up and it's 1,440. And every time I leave my bedroom, I see that. And that's how many minutes we have in a day. And so then I'm looking at that every time I leave. I'm like, okay, if I had a bad minute, am I going to make that a bad hour? Or am I letting that be a bad minute and then going on?
Hey, my name is Veronica Cisneros, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist, a mama of 3 girls, and married for 23 years. I am obsessed with helping you navigate through the seasons of marriage, helping couples like you break free from feeling like roommates. I will teach you the secrets to having a healthy marriage by providing tools and tips to help you reconnect in a way that you can't keep your hands off each other, where flirting and kissing is the norm in your household. Setting intentional time to date, get to know and support each other's dreams and goals so that you can grow together without keeping score or judging one another. Where you feel seen and heard even when you disagree. Where arguments end with mutual respect and understanding. Where you work together to build and strengthen your family so no one feels like they're carrying the weight of the family on their own. These are the necessary skills your children need for you to model so that they develop healthy relationships and thrive in life. This is the Empowered and Unapologetic Podcast. Hey ladies, welcome to the Empowered and Unapologetic Podcast. I'm your host, Veronica Cisneros. Today's guest is a mom of 7. Yes, mom of 7. Successful business owner and world record holder. Yes, mom of 7, world record holder, all in the same sentence. As the first woman to climb the second highest summits on each of the 7 continents, she now spends her time inspiring others to create a thriving business and lasting legacy of their own. She shares her stories and strategies for success through her book, Breakproof, 7 Strategies to Build Resilience and Achieve Your Life Goals, and her Seek Your Summit podcast, programs, and signature talks. We are so excited. I am so excited to have her on. Please help me by welcoming Jenn Drummond. Hey, Jenn.
Hi, thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. So, like right off the bat, mother of 7, world record holder. Girl, how are you doing all of this? I have 3 kids. I'm going to tell you right now, they outnumber me. Me and my husband, I'm outnumbered. This is crazy. And I'm just trying to keep myself alive, right? And keep them alive. So how do you do all of this?
Yeah, I think I am very intentional about how I spend my time. And I have to be, right? Like we can't show up at a restaurant and get a table.
Yeah.
You have to call ahead because you need a reservation because we're a table of 8, right? Like it's just everything is very scheduled, organized, and everything has a home. So in our house, if you use something, it has a home. It has to go back. The kids have 2 pairs of shoes because I can't have 80 pairs of shoes in the back entry, right? Like it's just, we have to keep things simple and to the basics.
Yes. So are you doing this on your own with Party of 7?
Well, we have a nanny, so that helps a ton, right? So she's there, doesn't live with us, but comes in, used to live with us when the kids were younger. And then after school, we have help. And then their dad works out of town, but comes in like every other weekend to help out with stuff. He's just really busy building a business.
Yeah. So for the most part, you're doing a good majority of this, even though, yes, I'm glad you're recruiting help, but for the most part, you're doing a good majority of this on your own.
Yeah. But here's the thing. I'm a mountaineer, so I have a lot of mountain metaphors.
Yeah.
And big mountains take big teams.
Yep.
And I think one of the biggest things that we struggle with as women is that call for help.
Yeah.
And to say like, "Hey, listen, is this like here's what happens. I went to go climb Everest and I wasn't
Just
afraid
like I'm,
of climbing.
I just climbed Mount Everest. Meanwhile, I'm like, I did Nevada Falls and I thought it was badass. Like Mount
Awesome. I think it
Everest.
is badass.
That's awesome. Sorry. But I just wanted to make sure I highlighted that. Like, holy shit.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's great. So I like was gonna climb Everest. It was a dare from my son. And I wasn't afraid of the climb. I was afraid of being gone. And like, how was that gonna work
Isn't
out?
that
And what are my kids
nuts?
doing? Okay. I know. Like I'm in a life or death situation. I'm more worried, like, do you have your banana bread for snack today? Right? Like, I mean, come on.
Did you brush your teeth? Like, please.
Yeah,
Don't be
right.
the stinky kid.
All those things. Right, it's a thing. And so I was like, so normally an expedition is 8 weeks to Everest, and that wasn't an option for me. Like there's absolutely no way I was gonna be gone that long. So I found a company that made tents that allowed you to like mimic a lack of oxygen environment when you slept in your bed.
Yeah.
And so I could be gone for 3 weeks. I'm like, well, 3 weeks is long, but it's still
Yeah.
doable for this pursuit.
Yes.
It's worthy. And so then I, lined up help at home, all this kind of stuff. And then I went to the kids' school and I told the teacher, I'm like, hey, I'm going to be gone. I haven't never been gone this long. I'm sure it's going to be hard on my kids. I have help lined up, but like mom's not there.
Yeah.
So can you give them a little bit of grace? And then the school came back and they said, hey, why don't we do a What's Your Everest campaign at school?
Oh, wow.
Come in, teach the kids about setting goals. So we did, and they like lined the hall with these little hikers that had a flag, and on the flag they wrote down their goal. It was like make a travel soccer team, ski a black diamond ski run, all these different things. And then in the front of the school, we put a huge mountain and then had a little hiker, and I had a tracking device on me. So then the kids could see where I was on the mountain. And at Everest these days, you actually have Wi-Fi at base camp. So I could Zoom call into base camp and tell talk to the different classrooms about what was going on and all this kind of stuff. So I had this whole community involved in that pursuit. And then my kids felt totally seen and loved and taken
Yeah,
care
your mom's
of.
a
And
badass. I've been like following
yeah,
her.
they're
I'm
like,
not even going to
my
bed.
mom climbed Everest.
Yeah.
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 Right. And here's what happens. Like you do something, we have this term in our house, what's your Everest?
Yeah.
Right. That is whatever that is for my kid. It could be like I'm going through a breakup or I have a math test or, whatever that is. When I ask them what's their Everest, I know that's the biggest thing going on in their life right now.
Yeah.
So it might not be big to me, but it gives me language to understand the importance it is to them. So I know how to support them. Yeah. When you have an Everest-like goal and allow people to be a part of it, the goal becomes so much more than the goal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
1,000%.
And your kids see you like my mom climbed Everest. Do you know the confidence level that has shifted in my children since I stepped into that pursuit?
Yes. Yes.
Right? Like, ladies, our kids are watching us. Mm-hmm. We're giving them permission to do life and chase big goals. And when we do it, they know they can too.
Yeah. 1,000%. 1,000%. You totally open something so much greater, so much bigger, something bigger than us, for the kids. I just celebrated 5 years as a group practice and ribbon cutting ceremony. I had my girls cut the ribbon. I was like, I want them to go ahead and feel like what this is like. Like, I mean, okay, yeah, I could cut it, but okay. But the girls cutting it, all 3 of the girls cutting it, it's like, dude, you can totally we, as women, we all want our kids to do way better than us and achieve way bigger dreams than us. And that, for me, it's that moment that it's like, you could do this and so much more. Yeah. So, I mean, it's not Mount Everest, but it's like, you just gave the kids this opportunity that most kids would never have, because guess what? Kind of going back to what Jen said, if mom doesn't think it's possible, how the hell are these kids going to think it's possible? It's not. It's not going to happen. I remember, my mom would say, know your worth. She would never model it for me. And it's like, okay. Well, I know, I think, but I don't know how to do this. Have you always
Yeah.
been this way, or what was it that you were like, you know what, fuck this, I need to change, something needs to change in my life to where I'm not stuck?
Yeah, no, I was not always this way, right? For me, it took a life-altering car crash.
Wow.
And like actually December 18 of 2018,
Holy moly.
I was in a yeah, I was in a collision with a semi truck. My car rolled over like endo 3 times, then rolled over about 8 to 10 times and ended up upside down in the median. And they have no idea how I survived. I actually survived and like walked away. Believe it or not. I mean, I went to the hospital to get checked out, but like I had the police call me a few weeks later and like, Jen, we have rebuilt this accident every way possible. And there's not a scenario where you live, let alone walk away. And so
Shit.
when that happens, when you face death like that intimately, like things change. Before the accident, I was like running on fear programming. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm not making enough. I'm not enough. I didn't drop enough cupcakes. Like I was like that
Yeah.
Pinterest mom that could
Yeah.
never arrive. Right?
Yeah.
Like, oh my goodness, I showed up in the sweater, but everybody else has the hairband and the socks that match, and I don't. And I'm like, this isn't even who I
Yeah.
am. Like, why am I pretending that I like to be in here and watch kids eat
Yeah.
glue? I
I could
hate
give
it.
two shits.
I'll take you for a hike,
Yeah.
but don't eat glue by me. We're not friends. Okay? Like,
And I don't want to.
so
I don't want to make your 500 copies. Like I could give two shits about that.
yeah, right. And I'm like, I'm glad there's people that do, and I'm
Yeah.
glad like we all are different because difference allows us to create. But yeah, no, it was so after the accident, I was just like, man, I do not get to choose when I die, but I sure get to choose how I live. And what I was doing, I was demonstrating to my kids, like, hey, when you get to college, then I can start doing me again. And we have this like problem with like this if then in our whole lives. I'm like, well, that's what I was
Yeah.
demonstrating. And so all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? I had like State of the Union with the kids. I'm like, listen, we're sitting down. Mom's going to start stepping into who mom is again.
Yeah.
It's going to shift things. If it doesn't feel good, let me know. Let's have
Yeah.
a conversation about it. Like, we're going to figure it out. It's going to get messy, but mom wants to start doing stuff again. And my kids are like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And like all of that evolved, and it's been so good because guess what? Now, instead of me saying like, no, you have to eat healthy, it's like, yeah, I don't feel like eating healthy either.
Yeah.
Right. But I have to eat healthy because otherwise I'm not going to be
Here.
safe on the mountain. And if I'm not safe on the mountain, I might die.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And so I don't want to train today. Yeah, I know it's not always fun to go to track practice. I don't want to go hike a mountain today, but I have to because it prepares me for the future.
Yeah.
And so all of a sudden we're doing this life in parallel. And now it's not me preaching to them. Now it's me demonstrating and being like, yeah, I mean, this is the way it goes, guys.
Yeah.
We're both here.
Yeah. Yeah. This shit sucks. There's shit in front
Yeah.
of us. It smells. Okay. What are we going to do about it? What are we going to do about it?
Right.
I mean, maybe not that way with our kids, but you guys get it.
You get it. You
You
get it.
get it.
Yeah. And like, here's like the crazy thing, like talking to a point that you had earlier. So I was going to climb a mountain. My son upped it to Everest. My coach upped it to a world record. And I was primed to like do something significant. So it was perfect timing. I step into this world record of being the first female to climb the second highest point on each of the 7 continents. I'd never slept in a tent before. Like, it wasn't like I had it figured out. I was just like, hey, whatever. If I fail, I fail. Now I'm more concerned about experiences I'm having in life than wins I'm having in life. Where before I was definitely playing to the win. I'm like, oh, I can do that and take that all the way home. Now I'm like, if I suck at it, at least I know what it feels like, or I saw it, or I did it, or whatever. Like, it definitely changed that perspective. And so I climbed this mountain in Antarctica. It's called Mount Tyree. I was the first American female, second female ever. We were like the 15th people to climb this mountain. And when I got onto the mountain and I woke up and we were going for the summit push, like the sun was out, everything was beautiful. I step outside and I was just filled with gratitude, thinking, man, if my mom or grandma would have been wanting to do this thing, not possible. Right? Like, our society has come so far, and it's so important for us to like wave our flag and do our thing and like carry that to the top of this mountain because now I take notes, right? Now the next person that comes, it's easier. They have more energy to go further. And it's because my little role in it was important. And every one of us in our little corner of the world are important, doing things to move all of us forward.
Yeah. Take me to a time. So you're hiking Mount Everest, or you're climbing Mount Everest. You got all of these kids that are following you, right? You got
Yeah.
all of these teachers and all of the moms who are following you and probably hating on you. We see
Yep.
you ladies, right? Take me through like what that climb was like. Were there times where you're like, dude, okay, for real, I can't even freaking breathe right now. I'm dying. Like, take me through the hard points.
It was so hard. Like there's points in that climb that I'm like, I'm that person, which I'm sure a lot of us listening are that person that like to talk about the thing when the thing is
Yeah. Oh
done
yeah, all day.
all day, right? It's like, but you have to talk about the thing when you're in it
Yeah.
because that's when you can add value to others people's life.
Bingo.
And that's when our lives go from success to
Yep.
significance, right? Success is boring. It gets old. We're always going to chase it. Significance is fulfilling and exciting and things like that. So guess what? Vulnerability equals significance. So here I have to share this thing. Note to self. I had no idea I had a fear of heights. Who says they're going to become a mountaineer and finds out they have a fear of heights? I'm like, I've been on skyscrapers and roller coasters and like whatever. Like, why am I scared? And it was like sweating, white. Like, I'm like, not only I'm like, I thought you could just talk yourself
Yeah.
through it. I'm like, oh man, I'm having a physical
Yes.
reaction
Yes.
to this hot mess.
Yes.
Right. And I'm like, oh, I got to figure this out. So you have these ladders. If anybody's seen TV and watched movies of Everest, like they always show pictures of people crossing these ladders to get through
and
these
bodies
huge crevasses.
and bodies too.
Yeah, bodies. Yeah. Yeah. But so this like crevasse is in front of me and it's a ladder. Okay, friends listening, it is not OSHA approved. All right. Like you step on this ladder and like the other end goes up in the air.
Yeah. 1,000%.
Right. I'm like really? Are we doing this? And it took me 45 minutes to get myself into a space to be able to cross that ladder and not pee my pants. Okay. And I mean, and in that 45 minutes, I'm going through, like, I had written myself a note for when it got hard, when I was in a good space at home.
Yeah, that's
right.
Smart.
So I'm like, okay, it's time to pull out
the
the note.
note.
So I pull out the
Pulling
note.
out
And I'm
all
like,
the guns right now.
I'm so full of shit. I can't even believe I wrote this crap. Like, I didn't know, like I totally, like, this note's full of crap.
Bullshit. I'm not deep breathing. I'm not practicing deep breathing exercises.
Whatever.
Fuck this positive affirmation.
Yeah. You weren't in this situation when you wrote this, you idiots. So I'm totally discounting the letter that I wrote. I am like listening to music on my phone that's like this pump up music.
Yeah.
I have a picture of the kids.
Oh.
And I look at that picture.
Girl, you're gonna make me cry.
I was like, man, they're watching. Like they're watching. Mm-hmm. And so I need to show them how we do things scared.
Yeah.
Because if I don't, who is? And everybody can relate to that fear.
1,000%.
And so I'm like, okay, I plug into each one of them and I'm like, okay, thank you for sending me courage. Thank you for sending me love. We're in this together. We've got this. And I go up to the ladder and I repeat a mantra out loud continuously, like safe step, safe step, safe step. Because that's the one thing I can do to get to the other side safely.
Do what you got to do, girl.
Right. So like, during the ladder crossing, I'm like, I'm swallowing my heart like 5 times. I'm like, you beat in my chest, not in my throat. Like, let's get this together. Right. I make it to the other side. My whole team is like crying, celebrating, music's playing. We have an impromptu dance party to get all the nerves out of our body and all this kind of stuff. And there's like so many lessons in just that one event,
1,000%.
right? Like celebrate along the freaking way. Yeah. We're not here to be robots and struggle and stress. Like this world is our playground.
Yes.
So like play,
all
like
day.
Learn how to tap into that play again. And because guess what? Someone who's having fun is 1,000 times harder to beat than someone who's like, I'm gonna get it. Right?
Yeah.
It's a different energy. And then like figure out what your why is. And you need that like glued to you or on you or available or look at it. Like even on my wall, when I leave my bedroom, I have a little number up and it's 1,440. And every time I leave my bedroom, I see that. And that's how many minutes we have in a day.
Mm.
And so then I'm looking at that every time I leave. I'm like, okay, if I had a bad minute, am I going to make that a bad hour?
Yeah.
Or am I letting that be a bad minute and then going on?
Girl, I'm writing that down. 1,140. I'm writing that down. Everybody write that down. 1,140. How are you going to spend your minutes? So you climb this non-OSHA approved ladder, risking your life, because that's what you're doing. You're risking your life. There's a part of like one slip, right? Just one wrong move.
Yeah, I mean, you're on it. Like we make, like our brain does tricks
Into
on us,
all
right?
those
Like it
things.
feels like the most dangerous thing in the whole world. But like, here's a funny story. I live in Utah. We have tons of rock climbing and all this kind of stuff. I call this guide down in southern Utah, and I'm bringing my kids down there. I'm like, hey, I want to do activities with my kids. He rattles off a whole bunch of them. It was like rafting, mountain biking, rock climbing, whatever. I'm like, I want to do the safest one. He's like, well, it's rock climbing. I'm like, no, it's not. And he's like, yeah, it is, because you're on a rope. He goes, if you fall on a mountain bike, I can't pick you up. If you're on a rock wall, you're on a rope, so I can catch you. So the reality is like, it looks really scary on those ladders, but they have you on 1,000 ropes. Maybe I'll fall in, but they'll have me and they'll be able to pull me out.
Yeah. Tell me what it was like once you were up at the top.
Yeah. So it's a lot at the top, right? Like I think it is. I mean, you feel everything. Okay. So like you're the entire spectrum of existence. You feel sad because it's over. You feel ecstatic because you're there, and you're every motion in between. So it's fascinating. When you get to the top, you take in this deep breath. And when you take in that deep breath, like everything disappears. There's no separation. There's no time. There's no distance. There's no sun. There's no mountain. There's no Jen. There is just the feeling of awe is all there is. And then you breathe out, and then things start to separate again. And you're at the top of that mountain. It's time to go down. And it's almost like you take the soul out of your body and you throw it out into the world. You say, I can't wait to find you again.
Oh my God.
It's magic.
Oh my God.
And like, and here's the crazy thing about the summit of Mount Everest. I was on the summit for 10 minutes. I trained 1,238 hours to stand on top of that mountain for 10 minutes.
Did somebody kick you off? What happened, Jen? Am I kicking somebody's ass? What happened?
Yeah, no, like you just can't. Like you can't stay up there, right? It's too cold.
high.
The oxygen tank will break. Like you have to get back down. Like it's not a place you stay. And it was like such a unique lesson, because I think we're always searching for that I mean, I remember driving to Florida as a kid. You better not have to go to the bathroom because we're not stopping. And it was like, you're just getting to Florida, and then you're there, and it's like land at 8 p.m. at night, and then you go to bed. I'm like, really? We couldn't take 5 breaks on the way here and land at 9? I mean, what? But like, that's how we do life. Like we're so focused on that destination, that 10 minutes, that we forget like life is in the 1,238 minutes, those ordinary moments that only we can make extraordinary. The extraordinary takes care of itself.
Yeah. The passion is so low these days that I feel parenthood and other commitments are taking control. I want to feel like it's me he wants to spend time with. Yeah, I've said those exact words 100 times to my friends after realizing that the man I said I do to wasn't the same person. Or was I just imagining it? But here's what I finally realized that changed things for me almost overnight. I started to use 4 simple and effective steps that changed our communication and connection for the better. As a licensed marriage and family therapist, I got excited and started showing my clients, and they too were seeing changes instantly. Whether you've been married for 1 year or 15, these tips work, and I can't wait to share them with you. Girl, I got you. I want to personally invite you to my live 2-hour online workshop. This is for moms who have said, the empty promises just aggravate me so much. He says he will do something or take care of something, then he doesn't. Communication has always been a weak point for us. He says things without thinking. I try to logically work through things, and he reacts emotionally. I try to say what I feel in a constructive manner. He takes it personally and attacks me. Boundaries are a confusing topic for me because I am a helper. I have this innate need to help anyone I can. So if this is you and you are ready to get off this hamster wheel, then allow me to guide you through this 4-step process. I can't wait to meet you personally. So again, this is a 2-hour live workshop. And for whatever reason, if you cannot attend, girl, I got you. This will be recorded, which means you will have lifetime access. This is for women only. If you are ready to go from roommates to lovers, then let's go ahead and step outside of our comfort zones together. Allow me to guide you. If you're ready, what I'd like you to do is go to empoweredandunapologetic.com/workshop. Again, that is empoweredandunapologetic.com/workshop. Get ready, mama, because we are about to do some work. Gosh, this is amazing. So you have this car accident, and I mean, I'm not sure where you're at with faith, but like you 1,000%. Like if there was any moment where, God was going to show you, you need to be here. It was like that, like, listen, you're going to flip about 4 or 5 times. However, you're going to walk out of there fine. Like you are going to have this moment because I need you to see where what your true, like what's your true purpose, right? Yeah. Like,
yeah. I mean, and it's crazy because I was a person who viewed the word surrender as a weakness and give
yeah,
up.
me too.
Like I really did. And the funny thing is funny, not
Yeah.
funny, ironic thing that life likes to like God wink at you a lot.
Mhm.
And so I have been journaling that word surrender for the 2 months prior to that car accident. And probably towards the end, I was finally realizing, like, wow, that's really where the power comes in. That surrender is actually a superpower. And it's funny because then the universe gave me a car accident, which before I would have been like, I'll beat you, I'll double down.
Yeah.
You can't beat a car wreck. So it was like a test. Like, do you understand this on the physical level as well as the mental level? And so the minute that semi hit my car, I'm like, I have to surrender. It's the only chance I have of surviving. And I stayed in my body. Like I literally put my hand in the steering wheel, put my head on the headrest, and I talked to myself through it. I'm like, I'm gonna go over once and twice and 3 times
Yeah.
and da 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 da. And I was just like, man, there is something bigger than me here. And there's a reason why I'm staying. And so 2019 became that, like, why?
Yeah.
Why am I here? Why
Yeah.
wasn't I taken? What's my
Yeah.
reason?
Yeah.
And then of course, like the crazy thing is like, I mean, I have a successful business.
Yeah.
So I had like a successful business that was like, I got to be a stay-at-home mom. And so then all of a sudden I was the stay-at-home mom and I was not happy, but I felt guilty for not being happy because look how lucky I am and blah, 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 blah. But it wasn't meant for me. And so then of all things, I get into mountaineering. Mountaineering is like one of the most, like everybody's, like, believe me, the amount of messages I've gotten about how selfish I am and how ungrateful I am and how like I disrespect life. I mean, it's fascinating. And it's funny because that experience, like getting into mountaineering, I've had more impact for my children, for society, for the world, for all women around than I would have ever had in any job, any donation, anything that I did, doing the most selfish thing in the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
1,000%.
crazy. 1,000%. Like my crazy story. So everybody who's listening, like this is just a fascinating story about failure. I went to climb K2 in 2021. K2 is like one of the hardest mountains in the world. Like 25% of people die on the way down. Like it's got terrible statistics.
Wow.
And when I went there in 2021, a teammate of mine died in an avalanche. And so I decided not to continue to climb the mountain. And I went down the mountain to take care of my teammate and like process everything that was going on.
So you were there when they passed away.
So I was a day ahead on the mountain. So I got a radio call that said like, hey, there's been an accident. There's an avalanche. Like, here's what happened.
Oh my God, Jen.
And so when I got that radio call, like I'm stunned because you read about it, but you don't think it's really going to happen. And here it's happening. And I had a choice. Like, they're like, do you want to go up or do you want to go down? I'm like, what? I'm going down.
Yeah.
Like, why are you even asking this question? And they're like, okay. And we did all that stuff. When we got down, there was no time to go back up the mountain. So we went home, and I beat my kids home from camp because I got done
Yeah.
early. And when the kids came home from camp, one of my guys was like, Mom, did you summit? And I said, no, I didn't, but I had success. My kid looks at me like, what?
Yeah.
I'm like, listen, who we are as people is way more important than anything we'll ever achieve.
Yeah.
And you're going to have times in your life where you have to pick people over peaks. And I sure hope that you always pick people, because the peaks will always be there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, okay, whatever. So like, I know I did the right thing, right? In my heart of hearts, it felt right, but that doesn't mean it feels right 100%. There's still like 5% of you that's like, come on, like, why did that happen? Now I have to go back there and pay for this
Yeah.
and all these things. Like, that's not fair, right? Like,
Yeah.
that shouldn't have been my story. And so then I'm getting ready to go back to K2, and I'm not excited,
Yeah.
right? Like, I now know what I'm getting into. I have all these like trauma things from before.
Yeah, now it's like real.
Yeah, it was real. And I get a phone call 3 weeks before it's time to go. And there's an individual that's been training that doesn't have the resources to do the climb. And they're asking like, hey, can you help make this possible? And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I think this feels right. So I go over to K2 in 2022. I become the third American female to climb. Sweet, awesome, fantastic. 30 minutes later, the first Pakistani female, the first Muslim female,
Oh yeah.
stands on top of K2,
Oh yeah.
declaring to the world that women belong and are equals.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I would have never been a part of that story if I didn't fail the first time, if like all the things didn't work out. So sometimes like we fail, in like air quotes, so that the universe can use us for more.
Yes.
It doesn't mean stop. It doesn't mean quit. It doesn't mean turn around. It means like, hey, listen, we have more to this story that we just don't get to see all the parts yet until we get to write it.
Yeah.
And so like that impact, to have little girls that are my daughter's age, to see somebody that looks like them on top of one of these peaks, it's priceless.
That's major.
I mean, it's a game changer.
Jen, I usually have people on here and, they share their story and, what am I trying to say? They share their story. It just, I don't know. I'm just going to fucking say it. It's just like the things you're saying, you're not like coming on here bragging about it. Like you're literally going like, dude, I've done some crazy hard shit, like really, really hard stuff. And the way you like communicate it, it's like, and I'm growing and I'm learning about myself. And I want my kids to be a part of this growth, and I want my kids to be a part of these lessons. And it's like this separation from ego to like just truly embracing all of you. Like, and it touched me so much when you said, you're on the summit and you're at the top and you're having all of these emotions. You're having all these emotions, all of these feelings, sad, hurting, excited, all of these emotions. And, I felt it when you said, you meant, I don't want to mess this up, but you said, you felt that existence component, like, I'm going to see you again. And it feels like you're doing that, like you're doing that every day. Like you're doing that every single day. And I don't, I'm sure you realize that. Maybe you don't, but it's like, I just want to say, like, I am so like, I admire that in you. I do. I have to say that because there's not a lot of women who are able to like, listen, I'm doing all of these things and I'm doing all of these things scared and I'm doing all of these things with guilt and, and I'm getting judged and I'm getting criticized and I'm still doing it. And I'm still doing it. And I'm being really, really humble about it. I'm being really, really honest with my kids about it. And I get to be a part of these things that are so great. And I get to be a part of like, a part of like this huge movement for women. I love that. I love that. I mean, I know you and I just met. Like,
Right. No, no. But like, you know, your people. I
yes.
mean, I'm
I'm like,
sorry.
dude,
You
totally kick it with, right? Like, you do, because
yeah.
we don't have that. I did this, and I refer to it often. I did this podcast series on high achieving women, and every single one of them talked about how freaking lonely it is because of all the
Yeah.
backlash we get for pursuing our dreams. Nobody understands this. Nobody understands this. And so I'm like totally taking advantage of this moment. You guys are welcome because you guys just get to hear this moment. But like, I'm totally taking advantage of this moment because I do want to acknowledge the fact that like, you are so fucking inspiring, so inspiring.
Mm.
And I love, like, I see myself in you, and then I see like parts of you where it's like, dude, I also would like to integrate some of those skills with parenting. I also want to integrate some of those things for me. And I just want to say that out loud because I don't think we compliment our, each other, women, right?
Enough.
I don't think we compliment or
Right. Right.
acknowledge these things enough. And so I want to say, like, I'm inspired by you. I'm like, damn, you freaking have me crying. I'm totally inspired by you.
Yeah. And we get to be inspired by one another,
Yes.
right? Like,
No
isn't that the
competition.
gift? There's no competition. It's like, hey, like my mom comes to Utah. She lives in Michigan. And we step outside of Costco and we have these gorgeous mountains that we get to look
Yeah.
at. And I look at them and I'm like, I cannot wait to like this one I'm going to climb and then this one
Yeah.
I'm going to climb and take the kids. Like every time I look at them, I'm like, I'm figuring out how to
Yeah.
get to the top of them. She looks at them and she's like, there is nothing about me that needs to get any closer than this spot right here. Like they're pretty, but I'm okay. We get to my house. I have this bookshelf, right? My mom can decorate this bookshelf so it looks like it goes in Architectural
Yeah.
Digest like
Yeah.
every time she comes. I like if I can't not even close. Like I
Mm-mm.
can't even buy like if I looked at it in a store and said just buy all those things and I'll bring it
Yeah.
home. Like it still couldn't make it look like
No.
that thing, right? Like I just don't have that skill. And so when we realize like we are so unique
Yeah.
and special and have our own way of doing things and when we allow ourselves to be that, we give permission to everybody around us to be that for
Yes.
themselves too.
Yes. Yes. And we're able to go ahead and not only grow together, but connect on a totally different level.
Yeah,
Totally different
totally.
level. And we get to go ahead and
Yeah,
model this for our kids, and they get to be something so much greater because of it.
exactly. Like anytime I'm
Mm-hmm.
struggling, I take one of my kids' names and I put them in my shoes. I'm like, if
Oh,
I was Jack, how would I want Jack to respond to this environment?
beautiful.
If I was Jana, how do I want her to respond? And because my kids are my purpose, like a lot of moms,
Yeah.
right? But they can be our purpose and we can still be us so that we can help them be
Yeah.
them. But we can use them to just like do a reality check. Just like you do your calendar audit. Like, okay, look at my calendar. I say I'm a mom first, a business owner second, and an athlete third. My calendar better say that.
Yeah.
If it doesn't, then I'm lying. And it
Yes.
sucks when it doesn't. I mean, I did that audit in July of this year, and all of a sudden I was like, man, I'm doing a crappy job. So I called the kids together. I'm like, hey, listen, mom's been lying. I said that I put you guys first, and my calendar is not saying that. And I'm apologizing. And we're going to start figuring out how to fix this. And we literally had this
Mm-hmm.
brainstorming session. This is what was so cool. I'm like, okay, who can I take out to lunch this week? So I would take somebody out to lunch. So we'd had some
Yeah.
one on one time.
We do
And
that
then
too.
somebody would have a
Mm-hmm.
soccer game. And then my kids would come with me to go do workouts. Or at the soccer game, I'd be the mom with a 12-inch step and a backpack full of water bottles. And I would be watching the
Hell
game,
yeah.
but I would be doing my workout because that's how I got both things
Absolutely.
done. And so
Yep.
when you say, like, hey, this isn't how I want to show up, like, let's figure this out, then everybody gets to say, and they feel like, oh, at least she's trying. Because guess what? We all make mistakes all day long, continuously. But when we have the
Yeah.
ability to say, like, I'm sorry, or hey, it didn't work out the way I wanted to. Hey, what do you think? Now they feel like, oh, at least, I mean, look at the level of control they feel like they get to say.
Bingo. And the level of control they feel within themselves. I get to choose.
Yes.
I get to choose. Nothing's dictated for me. I get to choose the way I'm going to live my life and experience it.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm totally seeing, so a couple things that come up for me, and I want to point this out. I'm totally, while you're at that soccer game, I'm totally watching you with this backpack, with all of these things, working your ass off, and there's women that are like, are you kidding me? She's really doing that
Right.
again. Or like, why can't she just sit her ass down? Because that happens. So, and it happens across the board. I have lost friends because of, the movement that I was making. And it was weird because it's like, I would 1,000% like fucking cheer you on, hell yeah, you're doing this, let's exchange ideas, whatever. But it was so interesting that the group of friends had slowly changed and kind of morphed into something else. And you would never think that that would happen because that's not you. That's not how you experience life. And that's not how, right. And there is
Right.
like a little bit of like like it screws with your mind a little bit. So for you, as all of those things that are happening, because I definitely want to point out judgment, that's the primary reason why a good amount of moms don't do the things that they want to do. How do you combat that? Like, how do you challenge it so that you're like, it's not even like, screw you. It's like, this isn't going to impact me because that's not even a part of my mission, right? Like, how do you do that?
Yeah. 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 Well, you got to insulate yourself,
Yes.
right? Because here's the deal. Our environment is way like more impactful than our
Yep.
discipline. Anybody who's in the holiday season right now that has like M&Ms on a table can tell you all day long. You won't touch an M&M if they're not in a
Yeah.
dish. But if they're in a dish in your table, like you might just grab a couple of them throughout the
Yeah.
day, right? Because the environment is not friendly to the discipline and we have moments of discipline falling apart. So
Yeah.
for me, I did a couple things. I made sure that I connected with people that were on the same pursuit
Hell
as me,
yes.
right? Because then all of a sudden it normalized
Yep.
things, right? So, like, I didn't tell my mom I was climbing Everest. She was not my first
Yeah.
call. First,
Sorry,
I called
mom.
a
Yeah.
coach. Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah,
mom.
because she was still like, no,
Yeah.
you're not.
Her fears would
So,
then become your fears. Mm-hmm.
right. So I'm like, I need to talk. So then I met with a couple of people that had climbed Everest, and then I went on to Mike's. I'm like, okay, if you've done this and you spill ketchup on your shirt, I can do this. We're good. So I could like normalize something that
Yes.
wasn't normal in my sphere
Bingo.
before, which is very important. Then, like at the soccer games, like yeah, and it was like you can't like the moms are sitting there and they're
Mm-hmm.
watching, and you get a couple eye
Mm-hmm.
rolls.
Mm-hmm.
And then what I did is I went over to them and I said, hey, listen, I'm trying to climb Everest. I don't have the ability to be a good mom and do training separate. So I have to do these together. I actually brought an extra step. If anybody wants to join me, I'd be happy to.
Yeah.
By the end of the season, I had like
Hell
5
yeah.
moms that were doing it with
You
me.
better have started charging membership, Jen. Yeah, I would have charged their asses
Right.
a membership fee.
But like, here's the thing, like I can know what's going on
Mm-hmm.
and ignore it.
Yeah.
So then I'm not fixing the problem. Or I can know what's going on and be like, hey, here's where I'm at. Here's what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to make you feel like a slouch sitting there. I just don't have like I'm doing something
Yeah.
crazy and my life depends on it. So now it's a different like
Mm-hmm.
gauge.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I'd love to have you join me because it is kind of embarrassing doing this by myself.
Yeah.
And like then you humanize it
Yes.
and you give them permission to be like, "Oh wow, okay."
Yeah.
You
I
know?
don't have to talk shit in the corner. I could be a part of this change.
Right. Right. Or go for it and you're
Yeah.
fine. I'll put a little martini in my water bottle and you can just sit there with your coffee.
Jen, I feel like I could talk to you all day. I do. I do. My last question for the entrepreneurial mom who is in it, who is doing it scared, because that's
Mhm.
pretty much how we roll. We do
Yep.
it scared,
Yep.
right? Who's doing it
Yep.
scared, who is doing her best to connect with her kids, feeling as if there's a shift with her friendships, right? And doesn't
Mhm.
quite feel understood. What either tip or statement, or I don't know, what would you give her? What would you tell her?
Yeah. I think we celebrate uniqueness, but we don't really want to live it,
Ooh, yeah.
And so, right? So the best thing that I can say, like, and in my book, I talk about owning your awesome. And you really need to just be like, okay, these are great things. Like, I mean, you can't turn on Instagram without getting a 10-hour morning routine. I think that's fantastic that somebody can have the whole day to do these crazy morning routines. It
Yeah.
doesn't work for me,
Yeah.
right? Like a gratitude journal, that's fantastic. It doesn't work for me. But guess what does work for me? I have a red light that I hit at my house every damn day I leave this thing because I'm on the short side. And before I used to sit there and get grouchy about it. And then all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? I'm going to turn this red light into my gratitude light. So now every time I hit it, I'm going to go through my gratitude list and that's my trigger.
Yeah.
And now when I hit that light green, I sometimes get disappointed. But my gratitude list looks like that because that's what my life allows. So that busy mom that's hustling and making it happen and having these shifts and all that kind of stuff, learn to celebrate who you are.
Yeah.
And like write it down or like talk about where you've come from versus always looking at where you want to go.
Yeah.
Because then you're looking at what you've built versus what you still need to build.
yeah.
And after a while, that gets exhausting.
Yeah.
So you don't always have to look at where you're going. Sometimes reflect back on where you've come from and just really own who you are. Because if we really want everybody to be unique, you got to own it and live it.
Yep. And I would definitely recommend that they do that exercise. Look at your calendar and are your values aligned with what's on that calendar? What schedules? I got to do that too. I'm just being honest, so we can all do it together. But I love that you were able to say, wait a minute. And I've had those conversations too with my kids. We do daughter date nights and or my husband. We rotate, my husband and I, but 1-to-1. You know, and one question I often ask is, what can I do better as a parent? Where am I missing the mark?
Yes.
And I don't give a shit. My kids will be very, very brutally honest. You know what? That one time I was just trying to talk to you and you're trying to fix it. Like they will say it. And that's beneficial for me because the way I perceive it might be different from the way they do. But it doesn't matter the way I perceive it. It's how it's planted in, you know, as a seed for them. I got to make sure that I am on top of that because definitely 1,000% my why, you know. Jenn, thank you so much for being on. Another thing, ladies, you have to get her book. So where can we find your book? Breakproof. 7 strategies.
Yeah, actually,
where can we find it?
We changed the book's
name.
name.
You did?
So
okay.
The book is called, yes, sorry. So the book is called Breakproof.
Breakproof.
I won. Publisher wanted Breakproof. I wanted Breakproof. And I wanted Breakproof because we're going to break. And in those breaks, we have the proof of what's working, what's not working, and what we can do to continue forward or maybe even climb a different mountain. So it's Breakproof. It's available on Amazon. You can pre-order now. It comes, I'm so excited about it. And so please buy it because it's a huge support. And I just know that when we become Breakproof, then we allow others to become Breakproof and we all elevate.
Absolutely. Jenn, for those that want to work with you or want to connect with you, where can we find you?
Yeah, so you have a couple options. You can go to jenndrummond.com. You'll have everything there, right? Like social channels and all that kind of stuff. An easy thing if you're listening and driving and you're like, don't want to remember that, text the word Everest to the number 33777. What I'm going to send you is a video clip of the Milky Way going over base camp, just to remind you like how significantly insignificant we are. I use it to ground myself throughout the day. So I want to share that with you and that will get you into our pipeline and you can find other ways to connect.
Hell yeah. Jenn, thank you so much. Thank you so much for being on. Thank you for being you. Thank you for creating pathways for all of us. Thank you for never giving up and just, I love you. I love your mission. I love everything you're doing. And you are an amazing, outstanding, and unique mom. And your kids are so blessed to have you as their mama.
Well, thank you very much.
Absolutely. What's up, ladies? Just want to let you guys know that your ratings and reviews for this podcast are greatly appreciated. If you love this podcast, please go to iTunes right now, write a review, rate the episode, and subscribe. Don't forget to share it with your friends.
Addiction impacts all of us. Addiction's consequences run through all of us. From ourselves to our loved ones and through our communities, addiction creates so much loss and grief. My name is Dwayne Osterlin, and I'm the host of the Addicted Mind podcast, a show featuring personal stories, expert guests, and vital information about addiction and addiction recovery. We'll talk with leading treatment providers to discuss the latest research and treatment options for this devastating disease and advocate for mental health awareness. We discuss topics like the importance of creating a community of support, to helping loved ones, to some of the latest research on psychedelic medicines. The Addicted Mind podcast has been about creating hope, listening to stories of many amazing people that have overcome addiction and are thriving. If you or a loved one is struggling with addiction, subscribe to the Addicted Mind podcast wherever you get your podcasts, or check out theaddictedmind.com. New episodes every Monday. See you there.